I've got that up on screen. Tell us what we're working with today.
Yeah, so for our first 3 rounds of Swiss, but we cut to top 8. We are doing a 2-stage format here, just like Direwolf with Worlds in a sense. So our first events are all in Expedition, our second events are all in Throne. So for this Expedition metagame, we clearly see that one deck has risen above all the others to be the most popular, and that is Comrade Ramp. And if I was playing in this event, I probably would have brought Comrade myself because I think it's very fun to play while also being very powerful. So I can understand why a number of people would also peg it as the deck to bring just because it is fun. Below that, we see Vision mid and Tradition Soldiers. And of course, if I didn't bring Comrade, Tradition Soldiers is probably the other deck that I'd have brought because, well, you might remember from other previous casts that the janitor loves to clean up, and he's going to clean up some games, I expect. And of course, Vision mid is the sort of Vision control deck from previous Expedition and Throne that is now retooled for current Expedition. Some things never die, even though Direwolf has removed display of Vision from Expedition. We still see Vision surviving, and it is far more of a mid-range deck than it used to be, playing cards like Moonstone Vanguard and the Reality Warden, the newly buffed Reality Warden that used to just be a 5-cost 7/7 is now a 5-cost 7/7 with Overwhelm. So that's a pretty big change because a 7/7 with Overwhelm is very different than a 7/7. Below that, we see some Argenport lists, and we see the Burgund sitting with Huru Control with another player playing Huru Control. And then finally, we see Doc, solely the lone Elysian Spells player in Expedition.
So one note about what you'll see at the top of the metagame here in both Expedition and Throne is that of the 16 players, we do have 4 players from the team We Stream Games, and all 4 of those players brought basically the same 75, the same deck list for both, for all the Expedition and all the Throne. So these counts, I don't necessarily want to say they're skewed because that does make sense for what we're seeing here, but you'll see that the 4 of the 5 Comrade Ramp players are the 4 WSG players. And then on Throne, you'll see the top deck is also 4 copies of it, and that is also the 4 WSG players. So not that changes anything here, but just a note that one of the reasons it's so popular is because a quarter of the field is on the same team and brought the same deck.
And then likewise, there's the Eternal Journey.
Mm-hmm.
Eternal Journey had 3 players put into this top 16, and they brought the same deck in both formats as well: Vision mid and Feln mill, respectively.
Absolutely. All right, let's switch over to the Throne metagame here. I got that pulled up on screen. Why don't you talk us through this one?
Yeah, so as alluded to, this Xenon Ramp deck is all by the same team, which is why it is so popular. It's not necessarily that Xenon Ramp is the most popular on ladder, especially because this deck's a little different than the normal Xenon decks you'll find on ladder because it is not a Reanimator deck. It's going for the other side of the Xenon faction pie. It's going for Time versus Shadow. Beyond that, you have the usual suspects: Huru, Kira, and Xenon Spells make up almost half of the field by themselves, which is fair because they are, quite reasonably considered to be some of the best decks in Throne right now. Below that, we have Combrate Kira, which is sort of, I guess, a different take on Kira, so I'm excited to see how that one might perform if they get there. And, of course, we have Burgund playing Huru Control unitless in all formats, as the Burgund does. And finally, we have this Feln Mill deck that somehow they managed to be convinced to play. What was it? 1 second. One of the people, it was Iplongo's deck list name is "Can't believe they convinced me." The Eternal Journey Mill Dream is their deck list name. So we'll see how that performs. I'm excited to see if they're trying to attack the metagame from a unique perspective, manage to win, or maybe it goes down in flames, but we'll all see it together.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for that metagame breakdown. So a little bit of diversity here. It's a nice balance. We've got some players all bringing the same deck and some power, but we've also got a little bit of diversity with, six different decks across the field here. All right. Well, let's dive in and get a little bit deeper on some of these decks. We're only going to look at the Expedition decks now because, as Stormblessed mentioned, the Swiss rounds, the first 3 rounds are just going to be Expedition, and then we'll deal with the Thrones deck, the Throne decks when we get closer to top 8. So why don't we start with that Comrade ramp deck? So I'm going to pull up Prakalakin's list, although I think all the WSG lists are the same, but I'm going to pull up Prakalakin's Expedition Comrade ramp deck up on screen here, Stormblast. Why don't you talk us through what's going on here?
So, the other person to bring it was Apple Chips, but their deck could be slightly different, but it probably won't be too different. And since this is presumably going to be almost a card for card copy in each of the decks, maybe 1 or 2 cards different depending. So this is a pretty reasonable list to look at. So first of all, what's the deck trying to do? The deck is doing one thing. It's trying to ramp. It's sort of a ramp kind of control deck. You basically want to gain tempo by playing expensive cards earlier, or just eventually playing cards more expensively. Specifically, cards like Builder's Decree. They don't really care if you play them earlier or later, as long as you can play them more expensively than your opponent can do. Playing it for 9 is huge. If you've got like 12 and you just play it for 9, you get 2 12/12s. Builder's Decree is just incredibly. It's so good, especially in a deck that can ramp it out and reliably get it to 9+. And if you can ever get to 13, then that's just amazing. Although that doesn't happen quite as much as like 11 or 12.
Absolutely.
Beyond that, you're basically trying to just control the board. You have Desert Alchemist, Smite, Vanquish, and of course the renowned Equalize to control the board and allow you to play cards like Coveted Gemstone and Enter the Monastery to gain a ramp/tempo advantage to allow you to play these very not expensive threats, but like more costly threats sooner than later. So Speaking Circle is an incredibly powerful card, as longtime viewers of T&E have seen. Even post nerf, it's still incredibly powerful. And what the benefit of Comrade Ramp does is that playing it a turn or 2 earlier is huge. It's a very big deal. It's just more tempo. It's a powerful card you're playing earlier. Beyond that, they are playing 4 Cups of Diana, obviously, and they are also slotting in 5 Moonstone Vanguards, both as some card draw and some stabilization, because it does gain you some life as well. I'm glad Daryl decided to rebuff it back to its former glory. I've missed you, Moonstone Vanguard, my old friend. And finally, I actually didn't even realize this was in Expedition. Knight Chancellor Seraph. When was that added?
Yeah.
Was that always there? Or was that in that recent edition? Anyways, Seraph is a pretty good call for a deck like this, because it's a 3/4 that helps stabilize you early, and as well as benefiting from ramping out lots of power later. So I like the inclusion.
Absolutely. And one note on this, so we've had this come up a couple times with the Expedition challenges. The format will be Expedition. I know that Direwolf did introduce Expedition challenges, but in the past that has still been a little bit buggy, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Of course, we don't have control over the in-game play, so if someone flips a Speaking Circle and it may pull up some Throne cards that aren't an Expedition, if it does, it's fine. We're just going to keep moving forward. Nothing we can do about that. Hopefully we get Expedition ones, but at the end of the day, we just got to move forward with what the tools we have available to us. So, we're with you, chat. We understand that might come up, but oh well, we do what we can. All right, next list here, we want to go through, what's the next one you want to look at?
I would like to look at the Vision mid deck.
All right, let's pull up Stormguard's Vision mid deck here. All right, we've got Stormguard 798's Vision mid-range deck pulled up on screen here.
So this is, if you remember the Vision decks of old, they were playing one of my favorite cards, and a card that I'd like to think that I helped introduce to the community in a big way. Know Thy Enemy is a really powerful card. It turns out, it's got 2 very good modes. It can work as a sort of makeshift, expensive Airmont designs, but when you need that effect, you need that effect. And so whether or not it costs 4 or 2, it'll still be good when you need just kill all the 2 drops. And then beyond that, when you can play it for 6, presumably 8+, you can start getting out multiple units, and effectively, if you're drawing and playing a unit, that's drawing a card, right? If you play it for 8, you're kind of playing a Wisdom of the Elders plus whatever the units are costing. And if you get 2 5 drops, then obviously you're playing Wisdom of the Elders plus the 2 5 drops, and so you're getting 13 power worth of stuff for 8 power. Plus you might kill a 2-drop. Plus you can kick it for an additional like 10 or whatever, and you can get a bunch of cards out of your deck. So powerful card. So this deck's basically trying to capitalize on the powerful card, and it's doing this by playing some interaction early with Edict of Makar and From Beyond, and Exploit to sort of control the hand to get us to a point there with other removal spells like Send an Agent and Smite. And then it's just backing it up with a bunch of solid threats here. Unlike with Vision Value Control of old, this deck's actually playing cards that can threaten the opponent a lot sooner. Night Chancellor Seraph being a 3/4 means it can actually do a reasonable attack on 3. And of course, as I alluded to at the top of the metagame discussion, Moonstone Vanguard and Reality Warden are just big, beefy 5-drops that will kill the opponent relatively quickly.
Absolutely. Okay, well, our feature match is almost ready to go. We're going to start with number 8, the Boxer, versus 9, the Burgund. Get a nice powerhouse matchup here right in round 1. So real quick, in about 3 minutes here, why don't we go through the Boxer's Soldiers list and then the Burgund's Huru Control. So we got the Boxer's list pulled up on screen here. What are we looking at here? This is your favorite, right? We got David. We got the Janitor.
Janitor in the house. We'll see if the Janitor can clean up versus no units. So this deck is a soldiers deck. It's a 3-faction soldiers deck. Basically, Hethos was printed, and Hethos is really good and also really, really interesting. It's a complex card with a lot of different plays. Now, in this matchup, it doesn't have the stun mode because Bergen's not actually playing any units. So Hethos is complex than it normally is because normally you actually have a ton of decisions to make. And so I love the card a lot in that aspect. This is just a powerful soldiers deck. It's playing 12 1-drops to get on the board early. It's playing some Amplify Synergy with Hethos, Shock Troops, Call on Allies to just sort of get value that way with some synergy benefits. Argo's Technique as Disruption, which presumably will be very good in this matchup with Burgund playing a bunch of spells. Argo's Technique on both ends, both helping to protect units by buffing them up out of the range of burn spells, while also, Burgund plays Channel the Tempest. Boxer plays Argo's Technique to counter it for 1. That's going to be backbreaking there. These Permafrost, though, aren't going to be very good in the matchup. But yeah, so it's just a classic soldiers deck trying to get in the aggression early. Argo Ironthorn can help close out the game. And a lot of it actually is kind of going to be weak versus Burgund, right? Like Customs Officer, not going to have very much to do because, the opponent, Burgund won't have any units to play on the market. Maveloft Huntress, not necessarily at its strongest here. So there's some interesting cards here, but Janitor Dovid will still be exceptionally powerful. Maveloft Huntress is still a unit that can attack. And this deck has cards like Call on Allies or Record Keeper to put the aggression on, force Burgund to actually have to respond.
We've talked about that nice synergy. I'm sure we'll see that come up today, but the Dovid into Maveloft Huntress basically kind of removing the Dovid from the equation, taking it out of combat, but still using the power toughness boost, the attack boost there. We'll see that come up a bit today. All right, and we're almost ready, so let's go real quick. What is the Burgund doing? Surprise, surprise, the Burgund is bringing Huru Control. What are we looking at with this deck?
It's got some of my favorite cards. It's got Builder's Decree, as I stated earlier. That's a very good card. Now, it's not ramping to play it, so it's going to have to play it the very fair way of just 1 power at a time. And, turn 5, make a 5/5, turn 9, eventually. Well, hopefully turn 9, but probably not because you don't normally play power every turn. Beyond that, it's a unitless deck. There are no units in the main deck, and the only unit is, well, there's a couple in the market, but it is playing just a bunch of removal spells and interactions. Smite, Vanquish, Vicious Regrowth, Equalize, Massive Greatsword, From the Heavens, 9-cost Harsh Rule is being played because we don't have actual Harsh Rule.
Yeah, I love the From the Heavens.
Yeah, I know, it's so expensive. We'll get played against the Soldiers deck. I mean, if the Burden gets to 9, does the Soldier deck winning anyways?
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't want them to get to 9 to begin with.
It's got card draw and Wisdom of the Elders, and I'm gonna say Speaking Circle counts as card draw. Transpose sort of counts as card draw, but not the strongest. It's very slow card draw because it's the way Transpose counts as card draw is Transpose for Wasteland Broker for Channel the Tempest. I eventually get to draw 3 cards. But the card I wanted to showcase the most is that Burgund is playing 1 copy of Steely Resolve, and I mean, as much as I love the Soldier deck, I'm going to say that I hope we see Steely Resolve on Argo's Technique because that would be amazing.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for going through these deck lists there. We are about to get started with round one. A couple follows I want to give a shout out to, and thank you everyone for bringing here today. Hopefully you enjoy it. Get settled in. We're going to be here for a few hours. Hopefully watch some great Eternal matchups today. Thank you Zodiac CC93, Supermouse 95, Z Daddy, Truffaz, Keith Pellig, Fabsen Polly, Cataclysmic Cat. Thank you all so much for the follows. We really appreciate it. So just a reminder, what we have is 16 players today. They qualified by either winning the challenges or getting those coveted wildcard slots. We're going to have 3 rounds of Swiss. They're all matched up already. They're ready to go. And then we're going to cut to a top 8 and have a throne top 8. So our first match is going to be the Burgund versus the Burgund versus the Boxer. It's going to be a little confusing with the bees there in our first round. But we are just waiting for them to get started. All right, what do you think the keys to this matchup are going to be, Stormblast, apologies.
I think the key to this matchup is going to be basically Boxer have to put on the aggression as fast as possible, making the tempo plays. If Boxer has to play a Hethos as a 1-cost 1/2 flyer, that might be what Boxer has to do. Now, obviously, that's unlikely because, Hethos can amplify and stuff, but if you got to do it, you got to do it. And Boxer might have to just pull some triggers and make some risky lines and go for the win rather than trying to not die.
Absolutely. All right, let me pull up a couple of the other matchups here while we are waiting to get started. So, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of really great players, and they've been matched up based on their seed, so the way that they ended the season in their matchups. So, if you're rooting for anybody on a particular team, you go ahead and cheer them on. We've got number 1 Apple Chips is going to face off against number 16 Male. We've got number 2 The Overmaster versus number 15 Ceres. Got number 3 Bottled Gin. My math is going to screw me up going backwards here. Number 3 Bottled Gin against number 13 Spifferific. Number 4 Ip Longno versus Doc 28. Number 5 Stormguard 798 versus Cola Coma. That's going to be a great one too. Number 6 Ash Acer versus Prakalakin. Number 7 Uric U versus WSG Ron. And the feature match that we're going to focus on, the Boxer number 8 versus number 9 the Burgund. All right, what do you think? Who you think? I know you're not supposed to do it when we're covering here, Stormblast, but who you got in this tournament? If you had to make a guess into your top 4, who do you think the top 4 is going to be at the end of the day here today?
To make a top 4, I mean, the Boxer is an easy pick to put in top 4, right? Because they got top 8 of Worlds, so that's pretty good qualifications. And they've done well in these tournaments. To be top 8 seed, they've done well. Apple Chips, obviously a good pick because Apple Chips has one of the highest win rates across all of TNE. Plus, they won 3 TNE tournaments, which is not insignificant.
Yeah, Apple Chips has been on a tear. So for those of you who didn't know, not to hype up Apple Chips too much, but Apple Chips, again, was the only player to win multiple challenges, and they won 3. So Apple Chips won 3, everyone else won 1 or 0. And across the entire season, they had a 72% win percentage across something like 50 matches or something like that. So it wasn't a 72% win percentage in one challenge. It was the entire season maintained a 72% win percentage in 3 trophies. So that's pretty incredible. I mean, that maintaining that win percentage against high competition all season long, that's really impressive by Apple Chips.
And I guess if had to put another name, I'd say Doc. Doc's a pretty good bet. She finally decided to bring Elysian spells into the mix. Instead, the big mistake at Worlds was not taking Elysian, and so Doc decided to remedy that. And I like that they did that. So that's a good call there. And I guess I'll leave the 4th slot open. I'm gonna leave it open.
Gonna leave it open. Okay. We'll see if Colacoma can grab that spot. I know Colacoma in the team tournament really carried that and showed us some really impressive internal. So hopefully we can see that here today. Okay, everyone. So everyone in chat, we're gonna go to a quick break, about 30 seconds. We're gonna go to a break just to get our feature match set up and paired and get them in game, and then we will jump back with just a second. We will get ready. So stick around, grab a drink. We'll be back in about 30 seconds with our first round. Don't go anywhere.